Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. I am Sam. I am an artist, illustrator and aspiring knitting designer coming to you from Dublin in the Republic of Ireland. This is my knitting podcast in which I try to follow the classic knitting podcast schedule, talking about finished works, works in progress, and of course acquisitions when I have any, and this time I don't have any, just a spoiler alert for you. But we do have quite a bit of stuff to talk about. As you can see, I'm not wearing any knits. This because it's getting warmer over here. We're finally within the mid 15, 20 degrees Celsius in Ireland. It's still jumper weather, to be honest, but I do enjoy this springy feeling a little bit. You can find me all around the internet looking for Irish Farm Art and my brand new Instagram account, an Irish Knitting Podcast as well. So, rather than chatting about YouTube or social media or where you can find me, I know for now that many of you are following around, which is really nice. Let's just start with finished works, and I only have one, which is this one. You have seen this in my previous podcast. This is a finished pair of socks. It's quite a made-up pair of socks. Originally, I wanted to knit another pair of my rugby socks. It's just a simple pair of ribbed socks. We have a 1x1 ribbing cuff, and then going down towards the leg we do have 2x2 ribbing, and the 2x2 ribbing follows the top and the bottom of the foot, so the instep and foot sole. In my rugby socks you have my Venetian heel, the heel that my grandmother and great-grandmother taught me to knit or were knitting, and I kind of figure out what they were doing. But in this case, I do have a so-called peasant heel. It's basically an afterthought heel. So let's start with the why the afterthought heel rather than sticking to my original plan. So for this pair of socks, I have used lang yarn. I do have the label here somewhere. Here it is. This is the label. I don't know if you can see that. This is Yowl Twin from Lang. Is a 25-75 sock yarn with a gorgeous rainbow effect. It's absolutely gorgeous. The yarn, the colors melt into each other so beautifully. It's basically a full long shade. But the label here says that this is twin yarn and makes, and I'm reading, 2 identical pair of socks. It's written here. Now, when I started to knit these socks, I was convinced this would act as a regular sock yarn. This is a 50-gram ball by 210 meters. So, considering that twin socks, I was used to the Regia Perfect, which actually makes 2 identical socks. I started from the pink and I knitted down a very long leg because I do like my sock to be quite longish on the top of the calf, and I started my heel and I noticed that the ball was getting smaller and smaller, and there wasn't any indication that this purple would come back for the second sock, which was my plan. So I ended up weighting the sock and the yarn left on the ball, and I saw that it wasn't matching. So a 50-gram ball, you knit your first sock with 25 grams and the second sock with other 25 grams works. That wasn't working for this, so I ended up unraveling So, not sure of the fact that I could actually make my grandmother's heel, I ended up just threading a little bit of thread between the stitches that I wanted to make my heel through, like I was doing an afterthought heel, and then going down to the point until I had 25 grams left on the ball and 25 grams on this one. So it turned out to be an afterthought heel that I later discovered is called peasant heel if you leave the thread of waste yarn and do a very simple short row heel over here with Kitchener stitches bind off. It's basically the same thing that you would do for your toe. Am I upset about these socks? Well, I do not wear a matchy socks, so in this case you have the blue with purple and then pink and yellow. But at the same time, I kind of don't mind. They are so vibrant, colorful and bright, and yeah, I do very much like the peasant heel over here. I feel like it's a way to knit socks that is mindless. You can just knit a long tube and then think about what to do later on. And once again, the colors are just absolutely stunning. Now, thinking about these socks, someone commented that we do need more rainbow and more colorful knitting, and as well the fact that Pride Month is coming and we do need to show support for the LGBT community. So I thought it would be a great idea for us to start from now until the end of June, which is Pride Month, a knit along. I do not have prizes yet, but I'm looking into that. I thought about the rules of this knit along and what it could look like, but I think the main point that I would like to pass, the point that I would like to raise with this knit along is that we do need to remind ourselves that we must show support for the LGBTQA plus community. Seems kind of out of time now talking about this, but rights generally are never to be given for granted. And any rights to profess your own religion, rights to, I don't know, dress as you wish, not wearing, I don't know, let's say a society pretend you wear black all the time. So being able to wear whatever you want, it's a right as well. It's one of the basic human rights. Right to marry who you want, right to have an education or a welfare system, an health care system to be taken care of. Those are all basic rights that our society worked hard in the years, in the centuries to build. And now they are kind of given for granted. I know that my children in the future will have to go to school. It is not a right, it's kind of a thing that I must do. If I have a toothache, I can go to the doctor and the government will cover the expenses or part of the expenses, depends where you are. But if I have an accident on the road and I'm touching wood and iron and steel and whatever, if I have an accident, an ambulance will come and take care of me. Or on Sunday, I can go to Mass and nobody will shoot me. Those are all basic rights. Now, when it comes to LGBT rights, they are very new rights. Let's face this. In the 80s or 90s, it was very difficult for LGBT people to live and to follow their passions, marry who they wanted. And it's still very difficult now in many, many countries. But in countries like Ireland, for example, we're very lucky that our constitution, our system, grant rights to LGBTQA plus, and moreover grant rights to be recognized as a transgender person, and to be recognized as well if you want to marry someone. Your wedding will be as a wedding as any other weddings. Now, it's happening that country like my country in Italy, I'm Italian, are now coming up with policies to think about not allowing LGBT couple to have children or adopt or get surrogacy. Now, I'm not going into all the concept of surrogacy, if I approve or disapprove, but it's a right, so should be granted. Italy still do not grant the same right for married gay couple to a straight couple. And countries like Italy, it's a very modern country, historical, is the cradle of all the rights in the world. We have the Roman, we have the most ancient law in the world, the most ancient universities in the world. We should be the first country to allow that. I'm going down into a rabbit hole, but I do deeply care to show you that rights are not given for granted. So even a country like Ireland, I can walk down the street with my nails painted and makeup on and nobody will flinch. If I go down to my own country, especially the region where I'm from, people are probably going to stare and they're probably going to point the finger, and they are probably going to say something not really nice. Although I think Italy has gone a long way, still there is a lot of issues. There are a lot of issues there when it comes to LGBT rights. So let's not give the rights for granted. And let's knit something together as well to show support, to show that we are fighting for the rights. So I apologize for all this talk, but I think it's absolutely necessary, especially because I want to send a message. I don't care if YouTube hates me or the algorithm hates me and doesn't show this channel to many people, but I do want, with the few subscribers that I have, to share this message. So let's knit something colorful and rainbow. Now, the rules for this knit along starts today, ends at the end of June. For this time, you can cast on anything that is a rainbow color or any color of any LGBTQA plus flag. You can find them on Google. I'm going to link you down here a very, very nice and helpful link with all the flags and all the explanations. So just choose your color, knit something, can be a pair of socks, a pair of gloves, a full garment, a scarf, or a towel, whatever. Just use the rainbow color or one of the LGBT flags colors. That would be amazing. I don't think we should have a finished work because it's a month. I'm so sorry, by the way, for the noise. I don't know what's going on upstairs, but they seem to be renovating the place, so sorry. Cast on something. The knit along will be running on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Ravelry. I must need to figure out a way to create a group on Ravelry for this, and of course over here. If you have started something, use the hashtag RainbowKal23 And let's make something to show our support for the LGBT community. And I have started, of course, something already, which brings us into works in progress. And this is just a cast on. It's another pair of socks using this gorgeous yarn here. This is from West Yorkshire Spinners, and it's called Color Lab. This is a DK yarn. Let's see if they have an indication of what's the composition here. It says 100% British wool. Is 225 meters by 100 gram of a ball. And the color, once again, is Color Lab DK Technicolor, it's called. It's a lovely rainbowish color. It's very short in the changing of the color, so you have only a couple of rows. It's the first time that I knit with DK, and I don't know if I love this. You know, fingering weight or sock yarn socks are really thin and nice to wear on your boots or your shoes. This is getting quite chunky. I'm using here a 2.25 millimeter needle, and I'm going to use a 2.5 for the rest of the sock. I do like my socks to be quite dense in fabric. I bought this many months ago after watching, I don't remember, a podcast, Stitches by Mrs. D probably, or something like that, and she was talking about colorful yarn, and I realized I never knit with self-striping yarn, with marble yarn, with color changing yarns. So I thought it was a great idea to buy myself a few balls. And I bought this DK because my granny, my grandma, and my great-grandmother use only DK for knitting socks. And I have a pile, literally a pile, of their socks, which are in hybrid between a sock and a pair of slippers. I couldn't fit those socks in any pair of shoes, to be honest. But they are great to walk around the house. So this will be my next winter socks, and they are rainbow. So I am going to enter at the KAL. Of course, I'm not going to win any presents if I manage to get some prizes. But tag me, put your rainbow KAL 23 on Instagram, and then we'll start this. And it would be nice as well to, I don't know, if you could just mention why you're taking part of the KAL, and yeah, that would be lovely to understand your point of view as well. Rainbow KAL 23. I'm gonna put some links here, and once again, it runs everywhere: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Ravelry, and of course over here on my page. If you are not on social media generally, send me an email saying that you entered the KAL, maybe a quick picture, and I'll make sure to put you in the raffle. Once again, if I manage to get any prizes, otherwise will be just to raise awareness and once again fight for these rights. What else about these socks? I use for these socks here and for other projects that you will see now a tubular cast on. Now it's 2x2 reading, and I couldn't find by the life of me a tutorial or a technique that had a tubular cast on without having to mess with the stitches. There is a famous tutorial here, video from Petite Knit, if I'm right, that shows you how to do a tubular cast on, but after you cast on one by one, you have to put the stitches into the right order to get a 2x2. So bring one of the purse stitches over the next knit stitch and so on. I couldn't be bothered. So I had to figure out a way to get a tubular cast on with 2x2 ribbing. Why so? Tubular is my favorite way to cast on. I find it's very neat and looks lovely. 2x2 ribbing is my favorite ribbing. So there was something missing there. The tubular cast on that I always use for 1x1 ribbing is the one that Caleb from Drowning in Yarn taught us. I put the link to the video below here. It's a brilliant, how's it called? Knitted on cast on, or knitted cast on. You basically knit and purl in a way that makes a lovely tubular thingy, and then you go on with your tubular. That didn't work for 2x2, but I kind of figured out a way to make it work, so without having to put all the stitches on your needle, go back and modify that. It's basically a way to knit through the knitted stitches and purl to the purl stitches. I kind of recorded a little video. It's by far not a tutorial. I'm not equipped to make tutorials and I can't teach. So it's a demonstration, if you wish. I don't know if that exists already. If it does, repetita juvent, the Latin used to say. Repetition helps. So if it doesn't exist, I really hope this actually is something that you're gonna enjoy. I know there is a need for this in the market, so enjoy. I'm gonna put the link for this little demonstration below as well. Let's go on with the works in progress. So you remember the sweater that I was knitting last week using a combination of Navia Duo, this yarn here that I had in my stash. So I knitted through the body and I figure that I don't have enough yarn. This is a game that is coming on over and over, and you will see later on as well. So I was short of about 3 balls of the main color. Bothered me so much to have to buy 3 balls, especially because this comes from Denmark, which is not cheap. I bought originally this yarn on Hobby. It's a Danish website, famous everywhere. They ship globally, very low rates and affordable prices, but they're not carrying this anymore. And buying from Navia itself is an extortion. And any other website, if the yarn is inexpensive, this is like what, 3 or 4 euro a ball for a 50-gram ball, then though the shipping was too high and I can't bring myself to pay that much for shipping. So I wasn't enjoying the knit, I wasn't enjoying the yarn that much. It's quite of a rough yarn. So once again, we started a blanket. I am starting blankets over and over and over and never finishing any of them. Hopefully we'll get to finish this one, but it's so long. As I did before in a failed experiment, I measured my bed and I casted on, or hooked on, because this is crochet, a number of stitches that would give me the actual length of the bed. So this could become a bed blanket, a bedspread. It's literally the only part of the house in which I need a blanket. I don't really need blankets. Well, why am I needing a blanket? You get it. So for this blanket, I'm using a combination of that Navia that I have, that is not enough for a jumper, ends of I have here this yarn here, which is host yarn, other ends of yarn, and I'm making kind of a bulky way yarn with all these ends, and crocheting them together using the interlock technique, which is a technique of Tunisian crochet that I learned on YouTube. So there's nothing much else to do there. It's very long, like a row of this little square take me about a day without knitting anything else. So I'm taking this super chill. I do not definitely need a blanket for the summer, but I would need a blanket for next winter if I manage to finish this. So the way that I go is to knit a few of these squares every morning as I wake up. I make my coffee, breakfast, watch the news because I'm an old man, and I knit or I crochet a few squares. And I keep it always very handy with a few squares here and there. The nice thing is that I change color for each of the rows, so I will get a little bit of variety as well. The entrelac stitch, it's very dense, takes a long time to make, but the fabric that it gives is really dense, which is gorgeous for a blanket. I warmly recommend. Currently I am on this row here, which is made out of this yarn. This yarn is a variegated yarn with a lot of acrylic in it. It's from Adriafil and it's called Zebrino, if I'm recalling right. I don't have any label to tell you what it's composed of, but I remember that I was disappointed because of the amount of acrylic in this yarn. The colors though are beautiful, and it's a bulky way yarn that goes very well with my blanket rows, so I'm gonna use this. And the plan is to use all the bits and bobs, all the ends that I have around the house, and yeah, make it a scrappy, long project. We'll see. Good. Let's go on with the next one, because I have so many projects. Frustrated about what's happening with my yarn chickening situation, I started a new jumper. It's all messy here. I should have taken care of the hands before, but you know, I'm such a professional podcaster that I do not need to take care of any piece of yarn. So here it is. This is a beautiful bottom up jumper. The pattern is from Istex, which is the brand that does a loppy yarn, and it is the Ridari sweater. You have seen me knitting a Ridari sweater before. I might put a picture here if I have any. And I knitted my first one using, what did I use? Using Drops Lima. I wasn't fussed with it, to be honest, and I left it back at home in Italy. Then, last month or before, I was visiting home and I found a jumper and I was wearing it all of the time. So sleek and beautiful, and fits super well, nice and warm as well. So I was like, okay, I'm going to knit another one at some point. So I have in my stash this gorgeous yarn here. This is from Sunness. It's the Nougat Tutti Frutti yarn, which is a beige color yarn with specks of other colors. We have yellow, green, blue, red, orange, pink, literally tutti frutti. And I am doing the color work using Sunness Perfect, which is a 75-25 yarn in the color 60-63, which is this ink color, 70-25, if I'm right, which is a brownish color, and then we do have a plain white as well for the contrast. Now, for this jumper, I made a couple of modifications already. Same modification that I did for the original Ridari, which I have laid down in my Ravelry page as well. Cuff, the waistband, it's 2x2 ribbing using the technique that I was just telling you. The actual Ridari pattern tells you to knit a couple of rows or rounds flat, and you have a lovely, how do you say that? Twisty type of cuff. And then you immediately start with the color work and so on. It's not something I would wear ever. So 2x2, perfect, it looks very nice and finished, so I don't care. Same at the body. I am knitting the 4th size. Originally with the Lima yarn, I knitted the 2nd size. This because Lima is a little bit thicker, and we're talking about an alpaca mix yarn. This is Pergint. It's 100% wool. It's quite tough and sturdy, so I didn't really need to have much room for expansion in the yarn, so I went on with a larger size, knowing that the yarn won't grow too much. And so far it's looking great. The next thing that I've done is adding short rows at the base of my yoke. For the short rows, I took my usual recipe for short rows, which is the flax sweater. Flax sweater is a free pattern that gives you a ton of sizes, ergo a ton of stitch count. So the thing that I've done is finding the closest stitch count to the one that I had here at the back of my yoke as soon as I joined the sleeves, and from them following the instruction on the flax sweater pattern. And this works every time, every single time. I had added the short rows, now I'm working on the yoke. It's a bell shape yoke, so it's quite easy and speedy. Problem, because we have a problem, and I told you, yarn chicken all the way. Today is actually becoming a problem for me. I bought one yarn by color because that was the amount of yarn that I used in my previous Ridari. The contrasting color though, I don't know why, but they are working differently in this case. It's probably due to the nature of the yarn, it's less stretchy. So I had to buy another ball of the 60-63, the blue yarn. And that is coming, so this project is just lingering there, and I'm waiting. Now, my next finished work. This is a cardigan / jacket that I am knitting in Drops Lima. The color is pearl gray. So, before getting into the pattern, which is absolutely gorgeous, let's talk about yarn chicken once again. Drops Lima is one of my favorite yarns. I know all the issue around drops, but I had 4 balls of this yarn here, this colorway, lying around the place asking for a project to be done. That probably I bought to make myself a scarf or something like that, because this is not a color of a garment. It's too bright for me. I need a color that covers up stuff. So it's too bright, and yeah. So those 4 balls were hanging around the room saying, hey, are you knitting something with us? So I started this jumper because I can't bring myself to knit a scarf at the moment, at least. I was needing a cardigan or wanting to knit a cardigan. I know that this is a gorgeous yarn, but I only have 4 balls. So I am going to knit as I go and then buy other 4 balls. Is always a matter of buying the right amount of yarn. So if something I want to tell you now is, I know everybody is different. I know that I'm very conservative yarn buying, but at the same time, considering the shipping, if you don't have a local shop, and don't do like me, the cheap one that buys like the very, very minimum amount of yarn and then realizes that doesn't have the necessary amount of yarn to knit something. So goes back to the shop and buy a yarn or have to pay for shipping once again. And this is happening to me over and over because when I'm on the website, I rather take off a ball of yarn and see the amount of money that I have to pay dropping a little bit rather than buying a proper amount with some wiggle room and then be fine and not have any trouble. So this is happening for every single of my projects currently, and I'm so annoyed. I am so annoyed because going through my stash of yarn, I have noticed that I have a couple of jumper quantities and they are all very short in yarn amounts. So I'm sure the next project I start, I will have the same problem of having to go and try to trace the same yarn, the same color lot, probably paying more for the shipping. The example of my previous sweater, the Ridari, is that specific French website in which I bought a specific yarn, it was brilliant a few months ago with the shipping rates and all and all. Now, I don't know if something happened in France, the shipping cost went up, but it's so expensive to get yarn from them. But I had to, so bad to me. Don't be cheap, this is my suggestion for this video. So, sorry, let's talk about this. This is a cardigan knitted in pieces. The pattern is for sale by Lang Yarns, or Lang, I don't know what's the right pronunciation here. I think Lang is a Swiss brand. And go on their website, I'm gonna link it here below. You will find amazing patterns. They are all gorgeous. I think I bought about 5 patterns from them. All the male patterns, the cardigans, the jackets, the jumpers are just mind-blowing. Especially this one. I'm gonna put a picture here if I find one. It's just a simple jacket with pockets and a zipper. Looks extraordinarily modern, beautiful, and I couldn't but start knitting it. So you knit it in pieces, 2 pieces for the front, 1 for the back, and the 2 sleeves. And I haven't read through, but you probably have a way to sew in the zipper and make it a collar. Can't wait to get that done. Now, because we only have 4 balls, I only have a tiny little bit, so I'm waiting for the paycheck to come and to give me some more yarn here. I think that is it for this episode. Yeah, I can't think of anything else. I spoke about finished works, works in progress, the knit along, Rainbow KAL 23 that we are starting now. If you have any recommendation for prices or what you would like to see as a price, I might get to put my hands on some yarn, some patterns, some books, so on and so forth. Tag me on Instagram, feel free to follow me here, that would be amazing. And I will see you in a couple of weeks. Bye bye.